Welcome to today's discussion on a critical issue shaping the politics of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah's stance on militancy. As a prominent leader and the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah, along with his father Farooq Abdullah, has been at the forefront of addressing one of the region's most complex challenges. Today, we'll explore their views, the controversies surrounding them, and the broader context of their approach to tackling militancy. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about Omar Abdullah's core position. He has consistently condemned militant violence and made it clear that peace in Kashmir cannot be achieved through bloodshed. In March 2025, as Chief Minister, Omar stated, militancy cannot be finished in J&K without the support of the people. This is a key point. He believes that a purely military approach, guns and boots on the ground, won't solve the problem unless the local population is on board. Winning hearts and minds, addressing grievances, and reducing alienation are central to his strategy. This isn't just rhetoric. It reflects his long-standing view that militancy thrives when people feel disconnected from the system, and lasting peace requires cooperation between security forces and Kashmiris. His father, Farooq Abdullah, a former chief minister and a towering figure in Kashmiri politics, shares this outlook. Farooq has been vocal in denouncing terrorist attacks, especially those targeting civilians. After a deadly attack in 2024, Farooq didn't mince words. He said, "Do they think they can create Pakistan here through this?" and firmly declared that Kashmir will not become Pakistan through violence. These are strong words, and they show that the Abdullah family does not condone militancy. In fact, they openly criticize such acts of terror, positioning themselves as advocates for peace and stability. But here's where things get complicated. While Omar Abdullah's condemnation of violence is clear, his tenure as chief minister from 2009 to 2015 saw a resurgence of insurgency in the Kashmir Valley. Militant recruitment spiked and attacks increased, particularly after the 2010 unrest and the 2016 Burhan Wani episode. These events highlighted a growing sense of alienation among Kashmiri youth, despite the National Conference's claims of providing mainstream governance. Critics point to this period as evidence that Omar's leadership failed to curb militancy, even if his intentions were to bridge the gap between the state and the people. Now let's address the perception that Omar is soft on militancy. Omar has often advocated for political outreach and questioned harsh measures, which some interpret as leniency toward militants. He's argued that many militants aren't foreign fighters but local youths driven by anger or disillusionment. In 2021, he pointed out that even after the 2019 changes in J&K status, young men continued to take up arms due to frustration. This, he said, contradicted claims that tougher policies alone would end terrorism. For Omar, militancy is a political problem, not just a security one. He believes that engaging with disaffected Kashmiris and addressing their grievances is critical to preventing extremism. Critics, however, see this as sympathizing with separatists. They argue that his calls for dialogue or his skepticism about crackdowns show a soft corner for those who challenge the state. Omar, on the other hand, frames it as realism. Ignoring political sentiment only fuels more anger, while inclusive dialogue can bring people together to stamp out militancy. This brings us to some of the controversies that have dogged Omar and his party, the National Conference. One major flashpoint was his stance on the 2013 execution of Afzal Guru, convicted in the 2001 parliament attack. In 2024, Omar stirred a political storm when he said the hanging served no purpose and that his government, if consulted, would not have approved it. He also noted that he personally opposes capital punishment. These remarks unleashed a torrent of criticism. BJP leaders called his stance anti-India, accusing him of speaking in favor of terrorists. A union minister went further, claiming Omar and the Congress were pandering to anti-national sentiments. Omar defended his comments as a personal opinion on the futility of executions, but the damage was done. This episode fueled the narrative that the National Conference is soft on militancy, a charge that Omar has struggled to shake off. To understand the Abdullah family's role fully, we need to look at history, particularly the 1987 Jammu and Kashmir state elections. Critics often point to these elections, allegedly rigged by Farooq Abdullah's national conference in alliance with the Congress as a trigger for the insurgency that followed. Many young opposition activists, frustrated by the flawed polls, turned to militancy. Omar himself has acknowledged this misstep. In December 2023, he said, rigged elections of 1987 led to the terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. He argued that if Article 370's special status were truly the root cause of militancy, as some claim, then terrorism should have started in 1947, not in 1987. This is a significant admission. By owning up to the National Conference's role in the 1987 debacle, Omar shifts the focus to political grievances, like electoral fraud, that gave militancy an opening rather than ideological or religious motives alone. So, what's the bigger picture? During his tenure as chief minister, Omar worked with security forces to combat insurgents, while also pushing for measures like removing draconian laws in peaceful areas. He's been unwavering in condemning attacks on civilians, calling violence unacceptable. But his emphasis on dialogue, his criticism of executions, and the National Conference's historical baggage have led critics, especially the BJP, to paint him as soft or even sympathetic to separatism. There's no evidence that Omar or his family actively support militancy. The real debate is about strategy. Omar believes in a people-centric political approach to end violence, while his opponents argue that this amounts to appeasement. In conclusion, Omar Abdullah's stance on militancy is nuanced and polarizing. He condemns terrorism unequivocally but insists that winning over the people is as important as fighting insurgents. His critics see this as weakness. His supporters see it as pragmatism. As Kashmir navigates its complex path toward peace, Omar's approach, balancing dialogue with security, remains a lightning rod in the region's politics.